Strong values and strong opinions. The Mike Broomhead Show. KTAR News, 92.3 FM, and the KTAR News app.
What's your name, little girl? Oh, give me 3 steps. Mike would be so pleased. Hey, everybody. It's Kristin Bentz in for Mike Broomhead on this Friday, and I'm so glad you're with me. All right, so one of the fun things that happened while I was filling in for Mike, we had a lot of breaking news, and it wasn't fun by any stretch of the imagination. It was about Preston Lord. So if anyone is, local and understands what happened with the death of this precious young child, 2 of my favorite reporters that broke this news when I happened to be filling in for Mike, and things just kind of organically happened. And that's what I love about journalism. That's what I love about this job, because things just happen and people that are bright and are doing the good work do their job and things just happen. And so I am blessed today with Robert Anglen, investigative reporter, and Elena Santa Cruz, criminal justice reporter from the Arizona Republic, are joining me. And so you guys are stuck with me now. It's like glitter. I'll never leave you alone. It'll never come off. So I want you to update us, for our listeners, about what has happened in this Preston Lord case that has kind of erupted with so many weird facets. Seriously. And a lot of breaking news happened this week. So I want you to recap that. So, Robert, do you want to start?
Sure. And thanks for having us.
It's my pleasure.
Our primary focus this week was a story about a whistleblower who came forward after we reached out to her in a very unusual set of circumstances, almost, a bizarre and maybe a first for me in my career. But the woman is an employee for Relentless Media Agency, or was, and her bosses are Adam Kiffer and Travis Renner, the father of one of the people that at the center of the Preston Lord homicide investigation. She says that during her time in the office, they plotted, planned, and engaged her unwillingly in a conspiracy to cover up who killed Preston Lord.
And that was literally, if I'm reading her testimony or her comments correctly, immediately following his death or the beating. And jump in here, Elena.
No, correct. That's what both of us have learned from this whistleblower, is that the plot was curated just after the attack. I believe he called his dad, and then from there the ship started rolling, and she had to be dragged into this unwillingly. And she talked about not being happy about doing that, and just it continued on and on until she felt like she had to speak out. And when she wanted to do that, then they hit her with a cease and desist. And no, the NDA was shortly after the attack had happened.
So they knew.
Prepped themselves, essentially. To scare
This case just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So what's happening with her right now?
She's doing okay. I think I described her in an earlier interview as scared, but she's also angry and she's determined. And this is a woman who wasn't out seeking attention, but to the all my reporting shows. This is a woman who was doing her job as an executive assistant and became embroiled in this, what she calls a murder plot. And they didn't just, Elena's right. They hit her with an NDA. Then they fired her. Then she went on TikTok and on one day posted a couple of TikTok videos about the case, but nothing detailed. Mm-hmm. Immediately, she was hit with a C&D, a cease and desist. That was followed by a lawsuit. And in between then and there, the owner of this company, without mentioning anything, sent me an unsolicited email asking me to investigate the woman whose name is Ashley Reynolds. Mm-hmm. And that's a nice glaring red flag.
Right.
So so she gets hit with the lawsuit. In between that, there's all these in betweens. She went to detectives and told them what they knew, And then detectives confirmed to us that, yes, in fact, they had interviewed her, and yes, her story corroborated information they already had, and most importantly, it did not contradict what they already knew. So investigators looking into the Preston Lord death, the police chief confirmed her story.
Mm-hmm. That is unbelievable. Unbelievable. What's happening with her right now as far as backlash and...
Lots of it. They're going after her, to coin a phrase, relentlessly. They continue to send emails. They continue to try and generate interest in investigating her as a criminal. They called, in an email to me, they called her a professional con artist. But there's lots of twists and turns in the interaction I've had with the owners of these companies, particularly Adam Kiefer.
Tell me more.
Even after the first story this week with the big one about her whistleblowing testimony, we got an email from her former company who Kiefer had mentioned in his email to Robert, and they just laid out basically the same kind of accusations that Kiefer had sent to Robert earlier in February. So they're using the same language of trying to put her in a bad light and trying to make her not credible. And just the language just keeps coming our way. But, I mean, the police chief said himself, it just corroborated things rather than contradicted anything, and I think that's what matters the most.
And you want to know the best part? Every time we reach out to these letter writers, Mr. Kiefer and this new letter writer, they don't respond. So it's just bizarre. And I mean, we could just take this ball and run with it.
Yes.
But Kiefer, who enlisted me to investigate her without mentioning that he was close to Travis Renner or that he had anything to do with the Preston Lord information, I continued to try and get him to talk to me. I sent him emails, and one of them was a list of 26 questions. We actually published that yesterday.
Saw that.
But in his after we published the big story about Ashley Reynolds and laying out what she said and the details and how it connected to this crime, he put out a message on Facebook to his followers saying he was shocked and disappointed by the story, as if it hadn't. And I said, how could you possibly be shocked? Here are the list of questions we asked you. You knew every line every key detail that was going to be in that story was in my list of questions, which I had given him 5 days before. Not only that, he sicked a PR professional on me, and I talked to her, and in one conversation she said, "What are you going to ask him?" I said, well, I'm going to ask if he participated in a cover-up. I want to know if he tried to pin this on another guy. I want to know what his conversations with Travis Renner were.
Absolutely. I want to talk about Ashley Reynolds, who is this whistleblower. And I want to talk about what she said about the cover-up. So,
as Elena mentioned, it started almost immediately, according to Ashley. She says on the night of the attack, which happened on October 28th at a Halloween party in Queen Creek, Preston Lord died 2 days later from his injuries. There was an effort by one of the attackers. He called his father, according to Ashley, and they connected, and plans began almost immediately to get the kid out of town, she says, to keep authorities from talking to him, to prevent people from seeing injuries on his hand that he sustained during the beating. So they moved him to a show low cabin. And as that unfolds, she says they talked, through the ensuing weeks, they talked about how to pin the killing on another kid who shares a similar name to Mr. Renner's son. We don't name juveniles until they're charged as adults at the Arizona Republic. But they were doing that, and then they took steps also to protect Mr. Renner's financial interests, as in fact a lot of the steps they took was to do that, so because they acknowledged that he was probably going to be sued as a result of this death. And so there was this effort to move him out of the businesses, at least on paper, while she says they plotted internally to make sure he would have an opportunity to come back. So they were protecting his financial
So here's my
assets.
question. this family, are they like a dynasty? Like, what businesses do they have? Like, what are we talking about? This protection and all of this cover up. Like, I mean, who are these people?
Elena?
Well, I don't have the names off the top of my head. Like, you might, but I know this Renner family, we said that they have like a good handful of businesses that they're involved in. Well, not just Travis Renner, but the mom as well, or their connections to businesses. And with that comes money, I guess, because with this cover-up, they said, like, we have money, we'll try and protect them. There's never a talk of, helping police with the investigations. So they full-heartedly wanted to use what they had with whatever businesses or whatever, however else they have their money to, cover this up and help pin it on somebody else as well.
Where are we with law enforcement?
Well, there's this case has raised a lot of different issues with law enforcement, and I keep reminding people to please separate them. There is the Preston Lord homicide investigation, which is being handled by Queen Creek Police, and they've made referrals to the county attorney's office. And then there's the attacks that we've connected to the Gilbert Goons, which has some overlap in these cases, but those attacks mostly happened in Gilbert, and they're now being investigated by the Gilbert police, who effectively ignored those attacks or certainly didn't take action on any of these attacks that occurred throughout the last year and a half. And they were, as we say in the paper, they go unchecked by Gilbert police for more than a year.
Yeah, but for the Preston case, and you're completely right, with Preston's case, because we talked with Queen Creek Police Chief Randy Bryce last week, they said, we're all waiting for what the Maricopa County Attorney's Office is going to do with these charges, but what we actually learned last week is that the Queen Creek Police had their case pretty solved, quote unquote solved, within a couple weeks of Preston's killing, and so that's something that we had learned last week. And I had something else to say, and I lost my train of thought. But
that's okay.
That's what we know.
That's why I'm here. I wanted to ask you, and so for those of you that are listening, we have Robert Anglen here and Elena Santa Cruz from the Arizona Republic, who have been absolutely instrumental in breaking all the news on the Preston Lord case, and we're getting an update on all of that. So I want to ask you about the calendar.
That would be among Ashley Reynolds' allegations that these people, as they plotted to hide Mr. Renner's son from authorities, they actually backdated office calendars to make it appear that he was out of town prior to the beating. She provided screenshots to us of those calendars, electronic digital calendars, and they show what she says they show, that there was some entries showed Mr. Renner being out of town from October 29th, which would have been the day after the attack, to the first week of November. Then there were entries that showed October 27th, 28th, that he was out of town. The Renners are at the heart of, or at the center of the focus of the community in regard to the Preston Lord case. As you know, there's been a ton of outrage. People are angry and they're demanding answers. Community activists, social activists, parents, students, they've all pointed the finger at the Renner family for their involvement in the Lord homicide, and that's been true almost from the beginning. And Ashley's claims mirror those thoughts. But they are the first public acknowledgement by police. Her version of events is the first time police have actually acknowledged any scenario involving how the killing might have taken place.
And there's so many facets to it. And what I really want to know, we're going to break this down in a little bit. I want to talk about just the attack on Preston Lord and what you know.
So, yeah, every time we've been here, it's been mostly goon stuff. But we spoke with Queen Creek Chief last week, Randy Bryce, police chief, and he kind of told us some things because while we were asking questions, and we learned that the attack itself happened in seconds. And he said himself, like, I cannot emphasize this enough. People do not understand. This happened in seconds. And we've seen videos. We've seen, unfortunately, many videos. Some are like minutes long. Some are like 20 seconds, 26 seconds. But the way he made it sound like mere maybe 10 seconds or less. And it was
this child was killed.
and that it was like a moving event. So it's not like he was standing and it was like however many punches and he was done. It was a moving event through all these teenagers, through, like however many, it was like 200 kids at this party. So that's what we learned about the attack itself. And thanks to Ashley Reynolds, we have an account of what happened. Sorry,
I know, you tethered.
Yeah. But that's what we know about the attack. And the aftermath is what we went through already with Ashley Reynolds. And I think that's it. Sorry.
Robert, jump in here. I want to talk about where are we with the charges? That's what I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, and I want to reemphasize that there is overlap between the Gilbert Goons attacks and Preston Lord's case, we believe. In fact, we detailed that. Our entry point into this was the Lord homicide, but as we investigated that in November and into December, we discovered these other attacks that had gone on in Gilbert and Mesa and Pinal County and Chandler that it kind of informed that some of the same people may have been involved in the Lord attack that were involved in these other Gilbert Goon attacks. Now, Queen Creek Police, on the second month anniversary of Lord's attack, submitted for charges referred for charges 7 people, a mixture of adults and juveniles. They would not discuss the actual charges, but they submitted those to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. So from Queen Creek's perspective, the investigation didn't stop, the chief said, but it's continued. But Elena made a good point also that they were they had an idea within days, maybe 2 weeks, of who was involved, what happened in the attack, and they say why, and that hasn't changed in the ensuing 4 months.
And yet they did nothing.
Well, no, they've been investigating like crazy.
And they continue to ask for tips.
And they continue to ask, but they submitted the charges against 7 people in the case, in the homicide, and that has been under review now for 2 months, and we don't know when charges will be forthcoming. We don't know who will actually be charged, but I would be really surprised if that didn't happen very quickly at this point.
I would hope so.
But homicide investigations are an organic thing. I've said this before. I have worked on cases, and when I say worked, I have reported on cases that have lasted years, decades. Sometimes homicide investigations go cold, and then they come back. So it is not – I'm actually surprised by how quickly it has gone, despite the fact that there remains immense frustration in the community about why aren't there arrests. And as somebody who studied crime and not participated in crimes, but been involved in those investigations, I don't think it's dragging. And
Bryce said the same. When we talked to him, he said for them to get charges as quick as in that 2-month time period, he said, quote, it was pretty darn quick for them to get that together. So really, the wait has been just the county attorney going through like hundreds of pages of evidence, all these videos, and those videos are a range of, they could be different attack videos, they could be photos from the night of the party, and they have to go through like every single aspect of the video. So I see why it could be taking a long time, because they really want to secure a conviction. Like most of the community has said they want that.
And it's so funny. So if you are following Instagram, and I am like forgetting the account name of this person that is literally doxing everyone about the Preston Lord case, but I follow it every day, and he's not giving up, and he shouldn't, and I don't think any of our listeners should. Yeah. And what is the most surprising thing about this case for both of you? I'm curious.
For me, it's been it's absolutely the phenomenon known as the Gilbert Goons, that this attack may not have occurred in a vacuum, that it was part of a thing. And by thing, we've been calling it a gang. Of course, they're considering whether or not to label it as a criminal street gang officially.
I thought they did that.
No, they haven't named it yet. It's part of the final charges that are anticipated from the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. But this idea that there is a gang of affluent teenagers who aren't coming together because they need money or they're out for territory or their reputations are at stake. Not the things that we usually associate with gang activity. It's about having fun by beating the crap out of people. And then there's some other, there are drugs. We've seen photo and video evidence of that. They do have an affinity for guns, but these are disaffected kids who have come together to form their own community of violence. I can't describe it another way, and that has been stunning to me. Maybe I'm not as cynical as I thought I was, but also within this whole framework, I think we have to remember there's the parents and the people who are related to Preston Lord. There is a huge emotional toll on them. So this waiting, even 2 months, 4 months,
excruciating.
I can't imagine going through it, and I don't want to minimize it, but I do think the homicide investigation has rolled forward at a pretty steady clip.
Absolutely.
I would say the same about, I don't have much experience, but walking into this with the Gilbert Goons and just seeing the various layers of the Goons, and then seeing and trying to attach that to the Preston Lord case. But then the Preston Lord case itself has been like surprising in its layers when we keep having to like pull back on all this Renner stuff.
Yes.
And for me, like, I am in my mid-20s, and that's also been surprising just to see these like teenagers only like 8 years below me just going crazy at each other and watching these videos. And that's just been an insane thing to watch and surprises me every time. Like, it surprises me, but it doesn't. But every time I open up a video, I'm just like, what is going on with the
posting
teenagers?
of the videos and the TikTok. It's really bizarre, I have to tell you. I am so thankful and blessed that you're here today on this Friday. Thank you so much, Robert Anglen, Elena Santa Cruz, Arizona Republic. They're just doing God's work. And this is what we love about journalism. So thank you so much for spending some of your Friday with us today. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to hear what unfolds in this case. And I hope there's some justice for Preston Lord.
Well, thanks for having us.
Oh, my God, it's my pleasure.
Thanks for watching The Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch and listen to the new season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.